The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to An Open Door on the Arts. My name is Barbara Richer, and I am your host, as always, as we travel the Capital Region meeting the wonderful and exciting artists that so enrich our lives. I was very fortunate when I met this young man is our guest today. It was quite by happenstance, and I have found his art just incredibly creative on many different levels. You will be seeing pieces as we do this interview. They'll overlay pieces of his work, and you can't tell, but we do have a tray of his things here that I'm using as inspiration. They're vastly different from one another depending on the stones and the wire that he uses. And I can't wait to introduce him to you and to have him talk to us about what's led him to create these just incredibly lovely pieces of beauty. Our guest today is Peter Heisig, jewelry crafter and artist extraordinaire. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Barb.
I'm so happy to have you here because from the moment that we met and I saw your art, it's just stayed with me in my mind. There's something I found very mystical about pieces of it, and some of it is very much like an heirloom, like you would think it has had centuries of life already in it. And then some of that silver is very fragile and very mystical, like there's magic happening in it. So it touches me on a lot of different levels, and I think it will our audience too. So I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you grew up in the Troy Averill Park area, so we can claim you as one of our own talents.
This is true. I was I was brought home to Troy, New York, which is where I'm living now. But when I was 9, my family moved to Averill Park, and that's where I spent most of my time growing up. And you told me that your dad was an artist, but not necessarily by trade or by profession, but he was an artist. This is correct. When we were still living in Troy, one of the things that my dad did to help supplement his income was he was a painter. He's still a painter.
As in an artist painting a canvas.
Yep. So I always had a lot of art in the house. And also my dad is a geologist, so we always had stones all over the place also.
That explains some of it.
Yep, which was very nice. Very
and when
helpful.
Did you start experimenting with just not even the jewelry, but the art piece? You did some canvases, you said.
Yep. Well, again, my dad being an artist, like when we had some time to kill, we would just take out some pencils and paper, and my dad would say, "Go for it."
Wow.
So there was a lot of that growing up.
And was it realistic painting that you were doing, or more abstract painting?
A little bit of both.
Both?
For me personally, I really enjoy the abstract stuff. So,
I asked that because I think you told me that yesterday when we talked, and I picture that in a lot of your work. When I was looking at it again, I thought, oh, this is what comes from here and here. So that, I can say to our audience, is so interesting. When you think as a child, he's given and exposed to these tools and given free rein with what you do with it. And who knows where it leads, but you continue to grow in that area as you grew up.
Oh, absolutely.
And the stone work, you have beautiful stones that you use in your work now, in your jewelry now. And that came from seeing these stones offered to you as you were a child.
Yep.
That's really
Yeah.
very nice. Now, your father worked with copper. Did you say that, or did you start working with copper yourself?
I started with copper first.
Okay. Okay.
That was my metal of choice. It's relatively easy to work with, and it's not as expensive as silver or gold.
And were you using it when you were younger, before you got to the jewelry? Were you actually using it in any of your canvas work or anything, or no? Okay.
No, I had there was some instance where I was just understood that you could put stones and metal together, and I just started going for it.
How long have you been doing it now?
I believe I'm coming up on like 2.5 years.
Really? Just 2.5 years, though?
Yep.
I'm surprised. Your work has kind of a sophistication about it. I would have thought that it would have been longer than 2.5 years you've been working at it. So it would seem that you really dove right into it and took to it.
Yeah.
Do you know, were you always using these two elements, or were you a wire worker first and then you added the stone, or did you kind of look at them both together?
I believe at first I kind of started looking at both of them together. I've always been really good at the 3D visualization, so the construction aspect of it just kind of came naturally for me.
So when you see a stone, I know that the audience may not be able to see this clearly. You will see overlays, but I actually just want to touch this stuff. So I'm just going to hold this up, and I don't know that you can actually get a good tight picture of it, but there are several small stones, one that's clearly different, and then this beautiful center stone that's wrapped in the copper. So say a piece like this, which seems a very sophisticated, very heirloom kind of piece to me, that has a lot of history in it to me, and obviously it's a new piece of jewelry, so it doesn't, but you create that feeling. Do you see the stones in a configuration, or which comes first? It's like the chicken or the egg.
Yeah. As far as my process is concerned,
yes. Yeah.
Normally I'll choose one larger kind of focal stone.
Okay.
And then I will. I have a couple starting techniques that I use, and I will, as I grow with what I'm creating, sometimes I'll find little spots where I can stick in other stones, just to accent the center.
So it's kind of creating as you're moving forward, and having that ability to make the wire and the stone kind of sing together.
Yeah, it's a ever evolving process. There's I have a couple starter techniques, but every single piece as I create it just comes as it will.
As it will.
Yeah.
So it has a life of its own. Would you find, did you start working with a copper or the silver first? You will be seeing also some silver on the screen as we go along, and this is smaller. I'm sure you won't get a good look at this, but you'll see it on the screen. It's quite lovely, quite fantastical, very young. It's a very beautiful, young, magical piece.
Yeah, I started with copper and then graduated to silver.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that typical of...
It depends. I mean, copper is much cheaper than silver.
Okay.
So it's a little bit easier to get a hold of also. And you just, want to be careful with your silver, because sometimes when you're measuring out wires, you'll do too much, and then, you have a piece that's this big, and it's...
And you're committed to having to use it.
Right.
What kind of training have you had, or is necessary to... I mean, did you just pick up a piece of copper and start bending it, or then did you go to a training of any kind?
I had seen some examples just out in the world, and again, really kind of took to it. But as far as training was concerned, I taught myself all of it. I had taken some traditional jewelry making classes, but that was not I learned a little bit about metallurgy and like how to manipulate wire, but the majority of the work was self-taught.
Did you find it, is it different working with the different wires? I mean, is one more difficult to blend than the other? And
yeah, each has its own little special qualities to it. I find silver is actually a little bit softer than copper, and copper, the more that you bend it, the stiffer it gets. So you don't have too many winds
with the copper.
Right.
Right. Okay. You talked to me yesterday about some online things that you've discovered that have been kind of inspirational in terms of some of your things.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us about a place far out of this country that brought you something.
I had so just surfing the web, kind of like looking around for inspiration. I had found a bunch of wire artists that I thought had some really cool stuff, but as I continued to dig deeper, I found this small collection of women from the Ukraine that have a very, very unique style, and that has brought me a whole bunch of inspiration. They kind of use a combination of some traditional jewelry making techniques and the wire work together to create some truly beautiful, super mystical looking pieces.
That's so excellent.
Yeah.
It sounds wonderful to be gaining inspiration from some places far away as the Ukraine and people that are actually doing this work now with you. Well, I think that some of your pieces really have that very old world, not just old world, but old world and then another category. Fantasy-like, mystical-like, I think is a better word than fantasy. There's this heritage and there's this heirloom sense, but there's also something quite mystical about a lot of your pieces. And I know that you also use, we talked about amulets using stone. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Each stone will hold a different sort of energy to it, and there are some that, like, let's see, rose quartz, very big pink stone,
right.
Resonates with your heart center, so it's a good one for attracting love or just holding that in your life. Amethyst is a deep purple stone, and that's really good to help with intuition. So a lot of the times when I'm creating pieces, I'll find a stone that kind of speaks to me, and I will do my research and find out some of its properties, and then I'll keep that in mind as I'm creating certain pieces. So I've made some pieces for friends or family members, acquaintances who are having troubles with like anxiety or
certain
depression
areas of their life.
What have you. And there are certain stones that bring about a more like comforting, grounding type feeling. So you can incorporate those energies into the pieces that you make to not only create a beautiful piece of jewelry, but also something that can give someone a sense of security and safety.
Right, that speaks to your own energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And copper itself has amazing properties.
Yes, it's a wonderful healing metal. It's been used throughout the ages in all sorts of, I guess, like
healing processes and things.
Yeah.
Energy processes.
Yeah.
And we know that they have copper bracelets and things for pain and stuff.
Yep. They've got copper tea kettles, copper mugs for energizing your water.
Yes.
It's good stuff.
That's excellent. So, I mean, it's enough for me to ever be able to have a piece that is so beautiful, that is just a piece of beauty that you can hold in your hand. But you add to that some of the properties of some of the stone and the wiring, the stuff that you use, and it's a whole. It's just an amazing thing to have on your finger, or around your neck, or wherever. Tell me about beyond the healing stones. Some of these stones have terrifically interesting properties also.
Well, I'll tell you about my favorite stone.
Okay.
Which happens to be petersite. And petersite is this wonderful blue stone that can have some orange in it. It can have a lighter blue. It has this really awesome sheen to it. When you move the stone, it's almost like a silky movement within it. But petersite is known as the traveler's stone.
Really?
It is also resonates with the storm and is really good for protection in any form of turbulence that you might find in your life.
Really? How
Yep.
interesting. Peterstone.
Petersite.
Petersite.
Yes.
Petersite. How did you come to learn all of? Is this part of your jewelry training, or is this just that you're
No, this
very
is more
interested in?
research on my own. It's just another facet to the creation process. It helps go a little bit deeper and not just creating something mechanically.
But it's all so natural. I mean, these pieces are all so natural. They're like from the earth.
Yeah.
I read on your website, which will be at the end of the program, the website will be there, and you can see some of Peter's work on that site. It's just a fraction of the amazing things that he has. But you'll see them there, so go and look. For instance, this one you were telling me just before we started, remind me, what is this piece of stone from?
Astrophyllite. Or
Astrophyllite.
Or astrophyllite.
Astrophyllite.
I like
just something that you like to say.
Yeah.
This one is equally as beautiful on the back as it is on the front.
Oh, yep. I challenged myself to make double-sided pieces.
I did not know that.
Yep.
I would say you succeeded here.
Oh,
this
thank
is
you.
Quite beautiful. And so, tell me about this stone.
So that particular stone is actually a helper for astral projection, and that was something that I was very interested in. And I had been looking for that stone for a very long time, and then my good friend Teresa, who owns River Rocks in Troy, she found some for me and called me up and was like, "Hey Pete, I got these for you." And I was like, "That's amazing, thank you so much."
And where does this stone come from, do you know?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. It is beautiful, though. When you go to look at his things, or when you visit River Rocks on River Street in Troy, be sure to ask about the astrophyllite.
Yeah.
Okay. I said it correctly. I won't be able to say it again. You also talked, and this maybe is a diversion. I want people to really focus on your jewelry and the reasons for using certain stones. And does the winding of the copper is that just out of your head design? How does that come to you?
There are certain component designs that you can add to it, and a lot of the wire work that I do is weaving, so it's very similar to some of the fabric arts in some senses.
Oh, all right.
But a lot of the windings are for helping with structure, but also just creating some interesting designs.
Enhancing beauty. And we spoke yesterday about how long it might take to make certain pieces.
Yep. Obviously, some pieces are simpler than others. So it can take me, for a simpler piece, anywhere from a half hour to an hour and a half. And then for some of the bigger pieces, anywhere from 3 to 8, 9+ hours.
Just on and on, depending on what you're adding and how you're doing.
Yep.
And that causes considerable wear and tear on
my wrists. I have to be very careful with how long I work, because it's a lot of gripping and just working very close. So I have some stretches that I do every day, and I'm relatively conscious of my diet and anything to help my ligaments and tendons.
Stay strong and supple and healthy.
Yep.
Yeah. That would seem important, as I can't imagine that you would not be doing this for a long, long time into your life. So we want to keep those wrists in very good shape.
Yeah.
You have a vision that comes out in your pieces, so we don't want you to lose the ability to do that. You were saying yesterday that there's another substance that's just kind of on the horizon of your creative talents. Orgonite, did I say that correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I don't want to leave your jewelry for long. I want people to really, really inhale it. But tell us where you see yourself also progressing to.
Well, I have started doing some research on this substance called Orgonite, which was basically discovered by this man, Wilhelm Reich, in the late 1930s, early 1940s. And they're basically these resin creations, and they can be anything from beautiful paperweights to energy transmutation devices.
Wow.
But I'll let
transmutation devices.
Yeah, I'll let the viewers do their own research on that.
I'm lucky I can say it. And how do you imagine, how would you foresee yourself, though, using this? Is it a substance? It's a resin.
It's a resin creation
that
uses an organic material, which is the resin, and an inorganic material, which can be pieces of like metal shavings, different types of metals, but there's a layered effect to it. And you can incorporate crystals into it as well, to add some other energies into these creations.
And you said even things like a violet, a flower or something.
Oh, yes.
You could put into the resin and
Absolutely.
it doesn't fast freeze, but it keeps that violet or that flower or that substance.
Preserved.
It holds it there and preserves it.
Yeah. And it's just a wonderful reminder of some of the physical beauty that we have here.
Around us.
Yeah.
That's an interesting direction to go in. And you used a good example yesterday. You were saying with now see, I'm not going to be able to say it. We find it in Russia, and they make jewelry out of it now. And it can be very black, or it can be very orange. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I can't say the name of the thing. And it has little like fossils in it, little pieces of the earth long, long ago in it. It'll come to us.
Yeah.
I can't say it right now, but it's like making that is made by nature, that particular substance that they make jewelry out of that's beautiful, that I have some of, that I can't think of the name of. That's made by nature, but this resin is kind of like becoming nature, because you can put what you want in there and make it. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful device. And I encourage everyone to do their own research on Orgonite.
Orgonite. So do you see it as a potential for jewelry, or growing outside jewelry into things like...
I would like to use it as another avenue, because again, making jewelry does put some wear on my wrists, and I feel like having another creative outlet to kind of like balance this out with will give my wrists a break when they're too tight to work. And it's just, I don't know, I think another thing that's really going to help this
very
planet.
Interesting substance. That's wonderful. You teach classes. I want our folks out there to know. I mean, there'll be a day, I hope, when you're just making your whole entire living by people knocking down your doors to buy your incredibly beautiful things.
Yes.
But you're also giving back. You teach classes.
Yep. I teach a couple levels of wire wrapping at, again, River Rocks in Troy.
And that's on River Street in Troy. The address will be at the end of the show.
So stop on in and you can sign up.
And learn to do some
and
wire work.
learn some very basic wire working techniques.
Okay. And you also mentioned, I wanted to tell our audience, because it's coming up and I've never been to it, I'm hoping that some of your pieces might be at it, the annual gem show?
Yeah, the Gem and Mineral Show in Albany. That's been one of my favorite shows for a very long time. I remember when I was younger, that's where my dad would take me.
Yeah.
And we would go, check out. Back then, I was more interested in the fossils and
yes.
the rock candy.
Yes. Yes.
But now it's still a joy.
And that usually is sometime around Valentine's Day.
Yep.
That's a broad
Yep.
thing, but people should start kind of looking around in just before February. And where does that generally take place?
I believe it's at the concourse in Albany.
Okay. All right. So will you be there? Is it a place where people show any of the things they...
Oh, yeah. There will be, there's a whole bunch of different stone vendors that will deal in all sorts of things, like big parcels of rough stones, or just like super interesting specimens.
Wow.
Little tiny like cabochons for creating jewelry. My jewelry teacher Maria will be there, set up with any designs.
Does she have
from Troy?
And where does she teach?
She teaches at the art center, but she
Okay.
also has her own practice, which is sawtooth jewelry.
Sawtooth jewelry.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll just give her a shout out there.
She's wonderful.
Good. And she is a teacher for you?
Yep.
Oh, that's,
Absolutely.
That's grand. All right. We're down to 2 minutes. I want to be sure we didn't miss. Is there anything that you would like our audience to know that we haven't covered a little bit? Or do you want to go back to or anything? Let me ask you this question. I know that you make incredible things, and I could find 20 that I would love to have. But do you also do, like, what if somebody had a special stone or had a special thing or had an idea for something? Do you do, like, made for order things?
Yep, I can do custom work.
Custom work,
Absolutely.
that's the word I was looking for. And they would find you, do you have a website yourself?
Yeah, all of my information is
will be at the end of the show.
Will be at the end of the show.
Okay. Or they can stop by River Rocks on River Street in Troy
True.
to find you. Okay. Again, I hope that you've enjoyed Peter, thank you so much for being with us. I'm jumping back and forth, but thank you so much for being with us. You're just a true talent and a very pleasant person, and I hope folks find their way to you. I think you have a ton to offer, and it'll be fun to watch you grow.
Thanks, Barbara.
And to our audience, I hope you've enjoyed both Peter and the beautiful pictures that you've seen as this interview has gone on. It's a real treat for me to have the opportunity to meet such a young person with such a talent. I think he has a bit of an old soul, which makes him perfect for young people and old people like me. His work is really beautiful. It will speak to your spirit, whether it's a 20-year-old spirit or an 80-year-old spirit. It will remind you that there's a heritage that we all belong to. So see him on River Street, and I'll be back to see you next time on An Open Door on the Art. Bye-bye.